And welcome everyone. I'm Ken Burlak, and we're delighted to have you all with us for today's webinar titled Windows Azure Tapping Its Capability to Fuel Your Company's Growth. And before we get started, very quickly, I just want to make sure that you've downloaded GoToWebinar and to be able to join in fully. And if you have any audio trouble, please check your speakers, especially if you're using headphones. And certainly you can ping us in your message box if you have any questions about audio in this way. In addition, one key point, we welcome your questions in today's webinar and at any time during the webinar. So just post your questions using the question box on your screen, and we'll also have dedicated Q&A time after the presentation. So our presenter today is Nitin Agarwal, CEO of Motifworks, a technology services firm that partners with companies to accelerate their product development, focusing on the Windows Azure cloud platform and mobile. And as CEO, Nitin brings a combination of leadership, strategic and executive skills in working with companies such as Microsoft, SafeNet, and Global Scholar to accelerate their product development for cloud and mobile. For today's agenda, very briefly, Nitin will start off showing you an overview of the Windows Azure platform, talk about why Windows Azure can help with your product development efforts. He'll discuss the various ways to go about a cloud adoption approach, and then move into how to get started with Windows Azure. And he'll illustrate some real-life scenarios for moving to the cloud. And then he'll detail examples of workload migration to Azure. And also, we will have a couple of fun polls in the mix for everyone today. As always, get your thoughts via survey. And after all that, we'll go into our Q&A session. And again, one more reminder, please feel free to ask questions anytime during the session today. And again, thank you all for joining us today. And with all of that out of the way, I am delighted to introduce Nitin Agarwal as our presenter today.
Thank you, Ken. We appreciate you all joining. Thank you for your time today, and let's get started. So the promise of cloud computing is now reality. Organizations that are using cloud platforms like Windows Azure are seeing greater agility and cost savings. And the potential benefits like these makes it easier to decide to move to the cloud. But the hard part, the next step after that, is how to get started and where and how to get most value from cloud computing. That's the one that can be challenging. So what you see here, the figure is a diagram where it's a cloud pathway. As an individual, you are a cloud wannabe. You are a novice user. Then from that, you learn about the cloud and you become cloud aware. When you become cloud aware, you start using the cloud and you use cloud for different scenarios in your organization. And that makes you a cloud enabled. And finally, you get to a point where you are fully aware of benefits of cloud, you're using it, and you become cloud optimized. The focus of the webinar today is to help you move from the cloud aware stage to the cloud enabled stage using Windows Azure platform. I'm going to talk about Windows Azure platform, the strategies for moving to Azure. And to stay focused, we are not going to go into the benefits of the cloud, risk of the cloud, or comparison of different cloud platforms. Now that's the stage which is a little bit about the cloud aware. And we would concentrate on what type of workloads provided the best fit for cloud and how to analyze these actual workloads that can be moved to the Azure platform. So before we move on, just a quick poll for you guys, and we appreciate if you can give us your reply, and we can look at the answers real after that. What are the major reasons to move your products to the cloud? So please select one of the answers. Okay, we're waiting, giving a couple more seconds for answers to come in. Okay, that's it. So real quick, the answers are accelerate your product development. We got 27% reply. That's actually very good, and there seems to be very even spread off across all the reasons, which are the all the great benefits for moving to the cloud. Okay, so moving on. Thank you for your answers. Moving on to the slide. Okay. So in this figure, what you see is on the left-hand side, and the right-hand side, is your on-premise data structure. The right-hand side is your existing on-premise structure, and the left-hand side is the Windows Azure Cloud Platform. And to set the stage for this discussion, I want to go over the Windows Azure platform and the distinct cloud service models it provides. Then Windows Azure, it provides a comprehensive application platform for your public cloud. And you can use this platform in many different ways, starting with software as a service. Software as a service is Office 365, Dynamics CRM Online are great examples of SaaS services by Microsoft provided on the Windows Azure cloud. It provides you platform as a service offering, PaaS, which is one of the first offering provided by Azure cloud, and a great way to focus on your application and data and not worry about the infrastructure, the server management. It provides you out-of-the-box pre-configured virtualized application environment. And finally, the next model is infrastructure as a service. It was made available by Microsoft in April of this year after a previous version that was launched last year. And I was really excited about this IaaS as an offering, and so was my customers to have this option. And we're going to talk more in detail about how you can use this Windows Azure infrastructure as a service and platform as a service of offers in the next slide. And finally, which is one of the great benefits and strength of Windows Azure platform, especially for the enterprise customers, is its hybrid capability. So you have the Windows Azure on the left-hand side, and using its hybrid capability, you can seamlessly integrate your on-premise data centers. And you get all the power and virtually unlimited resources that could work seamlessly with your on-premise data systems. Okay, so Windows Azure platform, looking at all the different options, what are the different services? So Azure provides an end-to-end solutions and services for all your computing needs. Starting with compute, one of the most basic things any platform requires is to execute application. It requires the computing power. And Windows Azure provides 4 different options for doing this. The first one, which is highlighted in an orange color, virtual machines, which is the way how Windows Azure provides infrastructure as a service offering. You can create virtual machines on demand, whether from a standard image library provided on the Windows Azure portal, or you can supply one of your own. So if you have a Hyper-V machine image, UVHD format, that can be used to deploy directly on the cloud without any changes. Moving next to the level of websites, cloud services, and mobile services, these are the 3 compute services provided by Azure in a platform as a service offering. Websites provide an execution model that offers a managed web environment without no administrative overhead to manage the infrastructure. You can move your websites and web applications built on ASP.NET, ASP.NET MVC, even WCF services, and even a WordPress site, which is running on LabStack, using PaaS service offering. Cloud services, which is provides you similar to websites, but it is more provides you more detailed offerings for complex applications. You get the control you need, but also it handles most of the work required for reliability and administration. It can be used for entire applications which has more complex needs. Mobile services, which is Microsoft out-of-the-box solution for creating and deploying mobile web applications. It provides a turnkey solution to build your mobile apps for different platforms. You can build iOS and Android phone apps using their mobile services, and it accelerates the development, providing that out-of-the-box way to store the data, authenticate your users using any of the social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and even send push notifications, not only for Windows Phone, for iOS, Android, and platforms. So here's the beauty of mobile services, that you can build those applications and the back end of that without having to worry about individual platform requirements. Then other than the computing requirement, one of the basic things that every application needs is data and storage. And there are different ways that Windows Azure provides you that data and storage capability. Starting with virtual machines, you can use virtual machine to deploy SQL Server. Oracle has just recently certified Windows Azure to support and run Oracle servers, and even any data store systems. We are running MySQL databases, running on Linux machines using virtual machines. That is the infrastructure as a service offering on the storage level. On moving on to the platform as a service for all other data and storage requirements, Windows Azure provides a SQL database. It is the out-of-the-box, ready-to-go SQL database for you. You don't need SQL Server licenses. You can run the same NC SQL queries that you are familiar with, and it provides you database access using Entity Framework, Area.NET, even any JDBC data access technology. So it's really out-of-the-box SQL Server instance for you without having to do any administration yourself. Table storage, which is a NoSQL backend on Azure. So if you have an application that needs very fast access to tight data sets, it has a huge scalability and data growth requirements. But you don't need to perform the complex SQL queries. Table storage is the way to go. And you can use the table storage options, the NoSQL capabilities, without having to learn anything about the NoSQL database. You don't need to know MongoDB or Cassandra database. It is available to you to use as a platform. Blobs, every platform requires a way to store unstructured data and binary data like files, and blobs is the way to go for that. Blobs are designed to store the unstructured binary data. It provides that inexpensive storage, and a single blob can be as large as 1 terabyte. So, and even a video application, backup of your applications, and all the scenarios we're going to look at in more detail later. SQL reporting, lets you build the reporting applications running on Windows Azure and even on-premise, on the fly. It provides you that reporting services capability as a platform as a service. And finally, we all know big data. We all have heard about it. And SQL Server is not behind that. It provides you Hadoop capabilities to build big data applications using HD Insight. And that's the name of Windows Azure implementation of Hadoop, where you can run MapReduce and all of the queries. In addition to compute and storage, which are the basic needs, Windows Azure provides a great set of application services. Your code frequently needs to interact with other code, with other services. And in some cases, it could be a basic queuing application, and in other cases, it could be more complex scenarios. Interaction may be required. And that's where the app services of queues and service bus are provided by Windows Azure. To further improve the performance of your application, it provides you in-memory caching and content delivery network, CDN, so that your blob data can be stored on the disk closer to your users, which improves the performance even further. For identity management, it provides you Azure AD services and access control, and it provides you media services for all your media-related applications. The hybrid capability of Windows Azure is made possible by its virtual network. You can create virtual network using Windows Azure platform, and that provides you a secure access to connect your own on-premise local network to a defined set of Windows Azure VMs. You can define whether it's one VM or multiple VMs or a VM in a different availability set. And that gives you that hybrid capability and access to your on-premise data stores. Traffic Manager route requests to users intelligently across instances of the applications. It could be global based, and those rules can be configured on the Azure portal. Okay. So having looked at all the offerings and service models provided by Windows Azure, the question is, why Windows Azure? What are the benefits of Windows Azure? And I love talking about it. So to start with, Windows Azure is provided by Microsoft. You have to consider that Microsoft, all the services of Microsoft, Windows updates, Bing, Xbox Live, Xbox Music, they have been running on Windows Azure platform. So it is a really robust and strong platform for you to consider. Specifically for you, you get a single point of support. So if you are interacting with Microsoft, if you are a .NET shop, you're using SQL Server. Even if you are not, you are using Exchange servers, or you are using SharePoint. Using Windows Azure, it provides you single point of support for all your computing needs. I've talked many times about this before. It provides a strong support for hybrid capability, and for any enterprise, it has a very important benefit. Microsoft products runs best on Windows Azure. That's a no-brainer. They are built to run on Windows Azure best, and they are backed up by Microsoft to run best on Windows Azure. For development purpose, and you get a seamless development environment. They are integrated with Visual Studios. They are integrated with SQL Management Studios in System Center. Now, believe me, it provides you a quick to no learning curve, and I can tell you that by experience that we work on many cloud applications. We are actually developing applications on Amazon AWS. But right now, 30 plus of my developers in my company, they are equipped with Windows Azure capability because it provides you that quick to no learning curve. It is very easy for those developers who are familiar with the ASP.NET and SQL Server programming models to pick up Windows Azure. Not to mention that you may need some expert help. You may need to spend time on implementing best practices and learn. So it may be a good idea to bring an external consultant to help you with that who already has expertise, but still it provides you with a quick learning curve for your internal team. From a business perspective, it has great financial benefits for MSDN subscribers, for partners who are Gold or Silver certified. For BizSpark customers, which is a startup program by Microsoft, it is really a great. Another example I will give you from my own experience that one of our customers, which is a startup company, a great concept, a great mobile application that we have built for them, they are a Microsoft BizSpark partner. And it's a Ruby on Rails application on the back end, and they were hosted on AWS. We had now moved them to Windows Azure, and as part of their BizSpark membership, for next 2 years, they are getting credits for their Windows Azure hosting. So for a startup, that's a blessing. I mean, that's a great benefit for a startup. And finally, the Windows Azure platform has supported by an extensive documentation and trainings and the partner community by Microsoft. Okay, so moving on, we realize now that Windows Azure provides a flexible and more secure cloud application platform. Let's look at the same cloud adoption pathway that you had seen from an organization perspective. So your team and your resources are now aware. How should you go about using these great services and consider applications that can be moved to the cloud? And that's where I think the next few slides I'm going to concentrate. And as part of your cloud strategy, you must analyze your different IT workloads and the relationships among them. You need to do a comprehensive analysis of your workloads to identify the ones that are great fit and provide the best efficiency and return of investment. Before we move on and look at the scenarios, there is a time for another quick poll, and I'm probably, this is a short one, the same, and if you can quickly select the answers from your question. The question is, what challenges do you see in moving to the cloud? So please select the answer that you feel appropriate for based on your experience. And we'll give it a few seconds before moving on to the next slide. Okay, still waiting for some more reply. Okay, so we'll close the poll and moving on. So, security concerns and don't want to lose control. But here the winner is lack of in-house experience working in the cloud platform. So thank you for your answers, and I hope this it helps you to understand the challenges of adoption to the cloud. Moving on, cloud opportunities. So the boxes that you see here provide you just a guideline of what are the different applications, what are the different IT workloads that you can consider. They may encompass all of your applications, but the idea is to show examples of common workload categories so that you can go back to your work and look at your applications and systems that you are building or working with on a day-to-day basis and see in which of the categories they fit and they can be considered for moving to the cloud. So let's look at each scenario in greater detail. Web applications. You may have websites which are serving static or dynamic web content. They may be streaming media on RSS. They could be a simpler websites, or they could be more complex and dynamic where they are web service enabled. They could be an e-commerce website. It could be a purchase order application. Or you may be hosting a project management suite tool within your organization which is hosted on-premise. Another example that you may think about is source control. All these websites and web applications, they may be mission critical, but they can be a good candidate for you to consider moving to the cloud. Looking at other complex applications which are more mission critical is ERP and CRM applications, just to give you a couple examples. These are really complex applications that may be running on dozens or hundreds of data servers within your data center or your co-located facility. You may be experiencing limited data center capacity, slow response time, or even low usage. And these applications can provide a greater benefit and a huge cost advantage if considered to move to the cloud. Looking at collaboration and social applications, SharePoint, another great example where you may be running that SharePoint across your organization, across multiple countries, running on hundreds of servers. And it provides you not only the advantage of moving those computing capacity, but storage requirements can be moved to the cloud. Actually, a very great example on case study by Microsoft, it is available on their website called Telenor. Telenor is a telecom provider, a large telecom provider in Europe. They wanted to upgrade their SharePoint to 2013. They have 13 business units across 12 countries. Using SharePoint and using Azure and deploying the SharePoint on Azure, they were able to bring the setup times for the upgrade process from 3 months to 2 weeks. And they enjoyed a 70% cost savings in their testing environments before they finally upgraded their production environment to SharePoint 2013. So a great example, just to give you an idea about how you can leverage the Azure infrastructure as a service in different ways. Dev and test, moving on to the next box. This is my favorite one because of the nature of the work that I do. But at the same time, I believe, is one of the low-hanging fruits that you should consider moving to the cloud. It provides less risk from a data compliance issues because you may be working with the test data, but it really provides a way to give you a major positive impact on agility and overall team productivity. You know, we all probably would have been a developer at some stage. Even if not, we have experienced that it takes weeks, sometimes even months to get a new server. Now, using cloud, you can provision and configuration of a server can be done from weeks to in a matter of minutes or hours. Load testing environment, that can be done on the Windows Azure. It provides you that platform and infrastructure that most of us would never get to test your applications in a production-like replica environment. Moving on to the next box, storage. Data growth and data management is a huge issue today. Data needs are growing faster than ever with all the mobile, social, and all the other data growth that we are seeing. organizations are seeing 25% or more increase every year. And most IT pros are faced with capacity issues. They have to manage new workloads, and they are often looking off-site options for their backups and data storage and disaster recovery. And that's where Azure provides a very cost-effective way to get your storage needs. It provides you many scenarios like disaster recovery, backups, and even storage of files like I said, SharePoint documents. You can move those storage to cloud and move that to Azure and get access to unlimited capacity, virtually unlimited capacity at a fraction of the cost. Analytics, moving on to another scenario that you might want to consider, analytics. These applications, they are very, very important, but you may agree that they have a low utilization because analytics, they are not used at every minute. They are very complex to build. They have a high resource requirements. And all of this can be improved and made better by moving those analytics applications to the cloud. You can put end to the siloed business intelligence and provide a centralized analytics solution running on the cloud. Okay, last box in this scenario, batch processing. And in an enterprise environment, even if you are a product company, we all have back-end jobs running. These are mission critical. They have to run every night. They run in every hour. But the nature of these batch operations or back-end operations, you would say, they are also low utilization from a server capacity perspective. And some of these batch processing may need a huge processing power or may need to scale very quickly. I'm going to talk about the example of a batch processing application later in the slide and how that can be moved to Azure. So with that, moving on to the analysis part of, given that you have now an idea of what type of workloads that can be moved to the cloud, how do we analyze it? What are the different ways and what should we be considering when we look at that applications and workloads and consider them moving to the cloud? And these are the different ways that we believe that can be looked at when you consider those applications. Starting with business scenarios, you may be developing an application now because of a new business requirement. It could be a marketing department, or it could be a new product launch. You may want to consider to build that application on cloud, or you may want to first get some experience under your belt, get some more confidence, and already have an application and migrate that application to the cloud. So, and that gives you some benchmark also to evaluate how much benefit are you getting and what are the resource utilization that you might be getting when running the application on the cloud. So business scenarios is one way that you can look at when you consider applications to the cloud. Another way of analyzing those applications is the usage pattern. The three boxes that you see in the graphs, they show you a typical usage pattern that is generally covers most kind of applications. Either they have an on and off pattern where they run for some time and rest of the time they're idle and not doing much. And it could be a dev or test environment. An example I said earlier, load testing environment. That testing environment, it has to run for a certain time when we are doing the load testing, and after that, we may not need it. So cloud provides you a great way to do that. Another box that you see is an application that needs to grow exponentially. You don't know that. An example of that, let's say a mobile app, Instagram, an application, or even it's a mobile or web, it may grow like a wildfire. Pinterest, who knew that this is going to caught up that quickly? And in that time, you need to support, and your infrastructure and your team has to have a way that they can support that expansion of that application. Spikes, the last box that you see is the spikes. And these spikes can be at different ways. One is a predictable spike. An example of that predictable spike, which is very common in a tax season. You may have a business and you may have an application that is heavily used during a tax season. And you will see the spike of usage of that application in February, March, and April timeframe, and definitely in US around 15th of April timeframe. And your application environment and infrastructure must be able to support that load, irrespective of whether you need that much capacity or not. That's a perfect fit for you to consider that can be moved to the cloud. Another example of a spike which is not predictable, and this is a good one, where government applications or a city or state applications, they need to have their infrastructure and applications ready for an unforeseen disaster. In case of a natural disaster, they may have thousands and hundreds of hits on their website in a minute. And they cannot predict it, but they have to be prepared for that. And that's the kind of examples that it will give you a usage pattern analysis for considering your applications. Cost-benefit analysis. In the previous slide, I talked about ERP and CRM applications that can really give you a great cost advantage and greater flexibility, but these are even much more difficult to move. They are much larger in size. They are mission critical. They have a user impact, and so you need to consider that what is the effort involved and what is the cost of doing that migration to the cloud in short term and in longer term. It may be a timing issue, but you have to analyze your application based on the cost benefit. Other requirements is compliance requirements. Security and compliance is a big need and big issue. It's there for a reason, and we all need to comply with that, and we all appreciate that. So you need to look at your compliance requirements and see if your application can be moved to the cloud. Compatibility. Now you may have an application, let's say it is running on VMware virtual servers. It is virtual server enabled, and you're running it in a virtualization environment in your on-premise solution, but it may be a VMware enabled. It is not on Microsoft Hyper-V. It would be a great reason for example for something that you might want to move, but it may not be compatible immediately. Microsoft does provide tools like Virtual Machine Converter, which is a free tool. They have a Windows Azure PowerShell module, which can be used to convert and deploy those virtual machines on VMware to Hyper-V VHD format and can be moved to the Azure. But it may not be an instant and immediate application that you can quickly move to the cloud. Readiness. Is your application ready that can be moved to the cloud? It may require some additional effort before that it can be moved to the cloud. So with that, it basically provides you some, this whole slide, you can write a large, long white paper to even talk about the whole workload analysis. So I want to talk about, given we have done the analysis, we know all the Azure things, capabilities that are provided by Azure. How do I migrate a website, and why would I migrate a website? So let's say you have a website. It has been requested by a marketing department. They are running a campaign on it. It could be a product-based or e-commerce-based website, and they are running that campaign on the social media. So they are expecting a traffic spike during weekends because of the nature of that website and what they are selling. It needs to scale exponentially. Let's say they are launching this campaign in one city based on their feedback on another city. On that city, they will launch it to multiple cities, and that's the reason it needs to scale exponentially. It requires frequent feature updates. Now, the example of the website that I'm giving is just to give you an idea, and I'm sure all these requirements are there in one of your applications, either that you're building now or you have built and you're maintaining now. Now, Azure provides a great way to take care of these requirements and challenges using different options. What I'm talking about is websites and SQL Server virtual machine. So if you have built that website, let's say on ASP.NET, and then it is running on-premise, using Windows Azure Platform as a Service websites option, you can deploy that website on Windows Azure, and the backend can be moved as a SQL Server VM. And the reason I'm selecting SQL Server VM here is to give you a quick turnaround. If that particular website is backed up by SQL Server backend, without any changes to your backend and application logic, you can provision a SQL Server VM and deploy it to Azure Cloud. So now you can have your website running on Windows Azure, both using Platform as a Service and a backend of the SQL Server using Infrastructure as a Service. What it does, it provides you an auto-scaling capability. You can handle that unpredictable load. It gives you access to virtually unlimited resources. And the beauty is you only pay for what you use. So if you are not using that capacity, using the auto-scaling option and configuration, you may not be using those resources and you're not paying for it. From a development and DevOps IT organization, Visual Studio enables the automation. So it makes it easier to do frequent releases. And it can be done on development and test environments. So you may want to run it and build it on the environment that it will finally run on. So your development and test environments can also be deployed on Windows Azure. So looking at another example of how you can migrate a batch processing application to Azure. So let's say you have a batch processing application, a process that is running on your application server or your backend servers, which is time sensitive. It has to finish by 4 a.m. or 12 midnight. It can only start after 12 midnight when you get some data from some of your third parties. So it requires some faster processing time. It may require access to a data store which cannot be moved to the cloud. So it has that nature, some compliance and privacy, or it could be that you are not moving that data store to the cloud. It needs to process fluctuating loads and maybe huge loads. So you may consider a backend process that may have a huge load at the end of the month or every 3 months because of some business process. But the rest of the month, that workload may be very nominal or may not be any. It requires high processing power because of the logic and the computing that needs to happen in there. Large storage requirements. You can move this application on the batch processing using Windows Azure virtual machines and blob storage. And you can connect to the on-premise data store using virtual network. So with that, you will be able to get your application to the Windows Azure platform in no time using the virtual machine option without minimal changes to your applications. You can leverage their blob storage and connect to the on-premise storage network using virtual network without compromising any security and privacy requirements. It provides you that auto-scaling, lower cost, faster turnaround time. So given this, I want to end this, my part of the discussion, with the last slide and to highlight the power of and. Microsoft knows that success with the cloud lies in the power of and. Customers don't want to rip and replace their current infrastructure. That's an investment they have done. They have great strengths on their on-premise, and they want to leverage those strengths. But they also want to get lower investment and flexibility of the cloud. And that's where Windows Azure platform provides you the greatest benefit. I want to leave you with that thought that Windows Azure is a public and a hybrid platform. It is an infrastructure as a service and a platform as a service. You don't have to get logged in because it provides you both the options. And finally, it gives you the agility and startup-like agility to move quickly without compromising on your security and compliance requirements. It gives you the agility and enterprise governance. So with that, I come to an end, and I will open this discussion for any questions.
And let me just jump in. Nitin, thank you for your presentation. And we're going to let Nitin take a breath and a drink of water. I'll let you guys bring us your questions. We have some that have already been put in, and we appreciate that. And we're just going to wait just a few seconds while a couple more come in.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
So one of the questions is, I'm happy to. So one of the question is, what's the difference between Azure websites and Azure cloud services? So these are the two service models provided by Windows Azure Platform as a Service. So websites, they both are similar in nature, but one website provides you a way to deploy your web applications on the cloud, but it does not give you any remote desktop access. With cloud services, you actually get platform as a service. You don't have to maintain the infrastructure, or you don't have any administrative overhead, but you also get to remote desktop access to that platform, to that particular virtual image. So in case you have to do any IIS configuration, if you have to deploy any other application or a software for your application needs, you have to schedule a job. All those can be done through cloud services, but they probably cannot be done through websites. I know that they cannot be done through websites. So if you want have a more complex requirement for an application, you should consider cloud services. Cloud services provide you two different ways: web role and worker role. Web role has the IIS instance on it, and worker role, which is more suited for background processes, it does not have an IIS on it. Okay, Ken, the next question. Okay. The question is, give more specific reason that Azure is different than using an ISP. Now, that's actually a great question, and one of the questions that comes in when in the cloud aware stage, where when you are hosting an application on an ISP, how is it different than hosting it on a cloud platform in Azure? When you do it on an ISP, it is a traditional shared hosting model. You can on ISP, you can provision a server, and you can make it virtualized. You can actually request a virtualized server. But in the cloud computing and Azure platform, all it can be done, like the self-service is the biggest benefit. It is a self-service. You go to Azure portal, you get the different options. You can deploy a virtual machine in using a library, using SQL Server on the library, BizTalk, SharePoint, and all of these things. Or you can load your existing VM to that. And an ISP, a typical hosting provider, does not provide you all that flexibility. Now, when you go to the server and you deploy it on Azure platform, you can change the instances, how many instances running on that particular virtual machine just by click of a button, and it takes effect immediately. There is no downtime. There is no, it's all self-service based, so which is a facility and a flexibility that you will never get with an ISP. You get access to that unlimited infrastructure using the Azure portal, which is a great benefit of Azure. Now, this is only looking at the infrastructure as a service offering, but if you want to consider other offerings like platform as a service, you don't even have to manage the backend, the infrastructure, the administration. You don't have to even provide the SQL licenses if you are using SQL database. If you are using cloud services or websites, you don't need to buy Windows Server licenses. So that's a platform as a service offering, which can never be provided by ISP. And finally, last but not the least, is the cost advantage. As application, we recently did a cost analysis of it's an ISV customer which has a health application, and they are running their applications. It's not a big instances, but they are running their applications on an ISP in a virtualized environment, and they are paying around $20,000 a month. And we did a calculation of the same capacity, even more capacity that they can get on our Azure platform in a fraction of the cost. And the cost that we calculated in the similar capacity, even more from a storage perspective, was $6,000. So here is the difference where you can have a $20,000, you're paying $20,000, and in comparison to Azure, you will pay only $6,000. Not to mention, you will get a greater flexibility. So another question is, how does Azure manage its hybrid option? So hybrid option is managed through the Windows Azure portal. You can go to the Windows Azure portal, and you can go to the virtual network and create a virtual network VPN tunnel, and you can select what virtual machines within your Azure platform can get access to which particular platform on-premise server, and it gives you that secure connection between that. Based on my discussion with Microsoft, one of the great things that that is in the works right now, and it should be coming out soon, that they are working on providing high bandwidth dedicated connection to your data centers. So there may be a premium to do that, but it will make it more fast and much more secure once you have that high bandwidth dedicated connection with your data center. So that's how you can leverage the power of hybrid. The question is, how efficient is Azure backup? So I'm going to put some more words to the question itself. I think when the question says how efficient it is, I'm assuming that it is looking at that, are we backing up the whole database or the whole file every time, or it can be done in a more efficient way. So Azure provides a great way to do that. Using System Center 2012 and Windows Server tools, you can select whether to take your backups, store your backups on local disk or on Windows Azure. And it actually does the backup in an incremental basis. Only the file changes get synced with the Azure cloud, not the whole thing. And it provides you any in-time recovery option. So you can roll back to any of the point in the time for your backup option. So it is definitely a very efficient process by reducing your bandwidth usage and making it more efficient to back up your to your servers on cloud. The question is, can you talk about security issues and the cloud, and how do I assess the risk? That's a great question. One of the number one question that comes in any of the cloud discussion when companies are considering moving to the cloud, or why they might not be considering moving to the cloud. So the security is a big requirement, and I don't want to underestimate the need of it, but I also believe that data security should not be an issue if handled properly on the cloud. There are certain reports, even by Computer Associates and IBM, that says, and I have got into some discussions with IT managers, infrastructure people, where they believe the cloud is more secure. You are basically relying on the best of the people who are managing those platforms, and it makes it more secure. But yes, there are other situations that you may want to consider your application where it may not be the right fit. So I would suggest that you look at your specific IT security and compliance requirements. You may want to involve your security advisors and auditors early in the process. We have a customer that runs a very data heavily regulated environment, and there we have certain limitations where that kind of data cannot be exposed to the cloud. And we are building hybrid bridges using virtual network to access those data, but moving the data that can be moved to the cloud. So I hope that should cover your security related questions. Yeah. Want to take, let's see, any other questions? So that kind of brings me to an end of this discussion. Ken?
Okay, thank you all. Yeah, thank you, Nitin. Thanks everybody for your questions. And just to make sure, looks like we are all set to go. No more are coming in, and we're just about at the end of our, almost at the end of our hour. So we'll close it here. Thank you, Nitin, for today's presentation, and double thanks to everyone for joining us today. Appreciate all your great questions, the interaction, and please know we'll make a recording of this webinar available to everyone promptly. And as Nitin noted, we'll gladly connect with any of you who would like to continue the conversation offline. And let's flash our final contact slide. We're easy to reach. And we also welcome your feedback for today's webinar so we can improve our effort the next time out. So thank you again, everyone, and appreciate your time, and have a great rest of your day. And we look forward to reconnecting with you soon. Thank you again.
Thank you, everyone.